Okay, so I am doing a review of the movie Eddington, written and directed by Ari Aster, starring Joaquin Phoenix and Pedro Pascal. Emma Stone's in it as well, and many other fine actors. So the basic story of Eddington is that Joaquin Phoenix is a sheriff in a small New Mexican town during COVID, at the height of COVID, and he basically doesn't want to wear a mask because he feels the mask mandates aren't helping build the community and dividing the community. And so he decides to run for mayor. And when he's running for mayor, his opposition is the current mayor, played by Pedro Pascal. And Pedro Pascal is probably more liberal, and Joaquin Phoenix's character is more conservative. And they have a personal beef from Joaquin Phoenix used to date Pedro Pascal's ex, and oh no, sorry, it was reverse. Pedro Pascal's dated this woman who left him, and then now he's with Joaquin Phoenix. Anyway, it's very kind of convoluted. But yeah, so basically they get into this big argument and it escalates. I'm going to do spoilers now just because it's hard to talk the movie without it. And Pedro Pascal slaps Joaquin Phoenix at a public event because they're having this argument. And then Joaquin Phoenix goes and kills Pedro Pascal and his son and tries to blame it on social justice warriors to cover up his actions. And so basically, Pedro Pascal's dead, and Joaquin Phoenix trying to cover up his murder of the mayor and his son. And then starts to get even more crazy with a mysterious group who has Antifa gear shooting at the sheriff and eventually paralyzes him. And then it fast forwards to many years later when the sheriff is paralyzed and the town is still full of craziness. So what did I think? I didn't like it. Basically, I think it came down to, I've been thinking about this for days, that essentially I do not know what Ari Aster is trying to say. Usually our filmmakers talk through their characters and how they treat the characters and is there growth or no growth. These characters, pretty much everyone in the film are pretty either dumb and hypocritical or ciphers. And what it felt like was that each character represented a particular point of view, conservatives, liberals, activists, but they were the worst versions of all these groups. And the sheriff, let's talk about Joaquin Phoenix's character, Sheriff. In the first half of the film, he's a flawed character, but he seems to be good-hearted at least, or at least not actively malicious. And so when he gets slapped, and then his response is to murder the sheriff and the mayor and the mayor's son, it just came out of like nowhere. Like, why was he a murderess before? Or it's such an extreme act that it begins to either come into a different genre. I think the TV show that reminded me of Eddington is The Boys. If you've seen The Boys, it's a satire of superheroes and satire of our current political situation with corporations and corrupt government. But I think what the problem with Eddington is, and The Boys has solved, is that, well, in Eddington, I think Ari Aster has a large amount of disdain for the craziness in all the different groups. And so he just portrays them as crazy and senseless, and that it's like, can't everyone just get along and you guys are idiots? I think the boys have a similar point of view. Eric Kripke, the showrunner, has talked about how he really is satirizing contemporary America. Same kind of subjects. But in The Boys, the villains and heroes have real human emotions and real human, just they feel like they have their points of view that are justified by their upbringing and the context of them. So even Homelander, who's like the villain of the series, you understand why he is a villain. He's not a villain because he just was written that way, but he grew up in a completely harsh, horrific way, which resulted in him being horrific himself. With the characters in Eddington, I just don't know. I don't know why Joaquin Phoenix shot Pedro Pascal's character. Pedro Pascal is seen as being corrupt, but I'm not sure what he's corrupt about. Something about a data center, and who knows it just wasn't even clear, at least for me. And then he just throws in this idea that there's this group that's flying on a private jet using Antifa costumes and different insignias, and that they're killing people and they have a lot of resources, which is okay. I guess there might be people like that. It seems like that's a conspiracy theory come alive. And then it's just not given any context. There's just no unified worldview beyond these people are crazy and idiots. And so I just feel like Ari Aster just doesn't have either interesting thing to say about the pandemic and all the conflict there, or he just didn't do enough research, or I don't know. And then finally, I think what troubles me the most about the film is that it really basically takes extremely difficult and serious topics and just continues to show them in cartoon-ish ways without insight. So here's the worst case of Antifa. They're flying private jets. They're well armed like a super militia, and they're killing people. Okay, making fun of Antifa, sure, but to what end? And honestly, I don't know this for a fact because I haven't researched everything about Antifa, but I feel they're like the big bads in the last part of the film. But if you look at militias in America, Antifa is not the number one threat that most American security experts talk about. So, like, what? I just think it felt like Ari Aster did a year of homework, and I heard he interviewed a lot of people, and then he makes a movie. I applaud him for trying. So I loved Hereditary and Midsummer. I mean, I loved them, but I thought they were really well done. And so hopefully the next one's better. That's my take. I would say 1 out of 5.